Welcome back, everybody. These are the best horror films of 1995. We're at the midway point of the 90s, the best horror films of 1995. Let's check them out. Let's see what was scaring audiences worldwide. Movie theaters, cable TV, and TV. Some good ones. Let's get scary. Let's get scared. These are the best horror films of 1995. A Bucket of Blood. Walter Paisley, a busboy at a cappuccino bar called the Jabberjaw, is praised as a genius after he kills his landlady's cat and covers it in plaster. A Bucket of Blood. Addicted to Murder. Joel Winter is just your average Midwest kid until he meets a vampire in the forest. Horror. Addicted to Murder. 1995. It's getting good. The Addiction. A New York philosophy grad student turns into a vampire after getting bitten by one, and then tries to come to terms with her new lifestyle and frequent craving for blood. The Addiction. Alien Terminator. 5 miles below the surface of planet Earth, a new fear is born. Horror sci-fi. Alien Terminator. Blonde Heaven. A coven of vampires operates out of a modeling escort agency known as the Blonde Heaven. Young blood, fresh meat. Horror. Nobody is safe. Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell. Trapped inside a haunted house, a bodybuilder must save himself from a gruesome ghost hell-bent on revenge. Horror. Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell. I love these movies. Burial of the Rats. In 19th century France, a young Bram Stoker is captured by a man-hating all-female cult of thong bikini wearers. Adventure, fantasy, and horror. Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh. The Candyman arrives in New Orleans and sets his sights on a young woman whose family was ruined by the immortal killer years before. Candyman featuring Tony Todd. Carnosaur 2. A team of scientists go to a nuclear mining facility to investigate a possible meltdown and instead find a large amount of cloned dinosaurs. Action, horror, and sci-fi. Castle Freak. A man travels to Italy with his family to live in a castle they have recently inherited, but he soon begins to suspect that they are not the only occupants. Castle Freak. Children of the Corn 3 Urban Harvest. 2 brothers connected to the murderous children's cult of Gatlin, Nebraska are taken to Chicago by an adoptive couple. Children of the Corn 3. Class of Nukem High Part 3 The Good, the Bad, and the Subhumanoid. Taking place after the events of Part 2, where Roger Smith's twin son Adali and Dick are born, one of them is suddenly kidnapped and taught to be evil. Congo. When an expedition to the African Congo ends in disaster, a new team is assembled to find out what went wrong. Action, adventure, mystery, sci-fi, and horror. Congo. Copycat. A criminal psychologist who turned agoraphobic after a murder attempt agrees to help 2 San Francisco detectives hunt for a copycat serial killer who intends on making her his next victim. Star Hunter. Star Hunters are the space monsters who hunt helpless creatures for pleasure. One night, a couple of high school football players and their cheerleaders are returning home after the lost game, but they encounter aliens. Star Hunter. Creep. Angus, a psycho, escapes from prison and hooks up with his stripper sister, Kasha. Some deaths ensues, and leading him to cross paths with the police captain. Horror and mystery. Cruel Jaws. A huge shark terrorizes a beach in Florida and the locals try everything to kill it. Action, adventure, comedy, horror. Cruel Jaws. Darkman 2, The Return of Durant. Darkman and Durant return and they hate each other as much as ever. This time Durant has plans to take over the city's drug trade using high-tech weaponry. Superhero action, crime, and horror. Deadly Invasion, The Killer Bee Nightmare. When bees attack an isolated country house, a family must stick together to survive. Horror, sci-fi, and thriller. So if you like killer bees, this movie's for you. Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde. A scientist creating perfumes inherits his great-grandfather Dr. Jekyll's formula and decides to use modern technology to improve it. Parody, comedy, romance, sci-fi, and horror. Embrace of the Vampire. An 18-year-old college freshman is seduced by a handsome vampire lover who introduces her to a dark world of carnal desires. Vampire horror. Evil Ed. A mild-mannered film editor is assigned to cut a series of infamous slasher films and is driven murderously insane by the miles of extremely violent footage. Evil Ed. Evolver. A teenage boy gets a robotic opponent after winning a laser tag contest, but the robot is not what it seems. Action, horror, and sci-fi. Evolver. Final Hour. Some students get locked up in their school and is stalked by a killer, but as time goes by, it turns out that there is more to this than it seems. Horror, mystery, and thriller. Grimm. A team of spelunkers, when investigating a system of caves beneath a small town, come across a hideous creature that can move through walls. Grimm. Horror. Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. 6 years after Michael Myers last terrorized Haddonfield, he returns there in pursuit of his niece, Jamie Lloyd, who has escaped with her newborn child, for which Michael and a mysterious cult have sinister plans. Haunted School. A young girl wanders into a wing of her elementary school that has been abandoned for years and is rumored to be haunted. Family horror. Haunted School. Haunted. A skeptical professor visits a remote British estate to debunk allegations of psychic phenomena, but soon finds himself haunted by a ghost from his own past. Drama and horror. Hideaway. Hatch gets a special resuscitative medicine after dying in a car accident. His wife and daughter only get minor injuries. He gets strange nightmares such as killing a teen girl. Is it just dreams? Howling. New Moon Rising. A small-town desert community in Southern California begins experiencing a number of brutal werewolf-like slayings, following the arrival of a strange motorcyclist. Werewolf horror. How to Slay a Vampire. Two shiftless brothers discover a vampire wrapped in rug bought at a flea market. Trying to kill it turns out to be somewhat problematic. Comedy and horror. Ice Cream Man. Poor Gregory, after being released from the Wishing Well Sanitarium, all he wants to do is make the children happy, so Gregory reopens the old ice cream factory and all the unappreciative brats are reprocessed into the flavor of the day. Jacko. A long ago wizard was put to death, but he swore vengeance on the townsfolk that did him in. Now it's time for revenge. Slasher horror, supernatural horror. Jacko. Last Gasp. A ruthless real estate developer is possessed by the violent spirits of the Native American tribesmen he massacred, which forced him to go on an indiscriminate killing spree against his will. Last Gasp. Leprechaun 3. An evil leprechaun finds himself in Las Vegas, where he proceeds to cause mischief by killing people, granting twisted wishes and infecting a young man with his green blood. Lord of Illusions. A private detective gets more than he bargains for when he encounters Philip Swan, a performer whose amazing illusions captivate the world, but they are not really what everyone thinks. Horror, mystery, and thriller. Project Metal Beast. In 1974, an unhinged CIA agent injects himself with a werewolf blood he found. After a killing spree, his body is put in suspended animation. Project Metal Beast. Mind Ripper. Government scientists attempt to reanimate a corpse they found in the desert, but end up inadvertently creating a monster. Horror and sci-fi. Mind Ripper. Mirror Mirror 3. The Voyeur. A young man discovers a mysterious mirror and begins to have disturbing visions of forbidden passion and brutal murder. Drama and horror. Mirror Mirror 3. Mommy. After 12-year-old Jessica Ann's teacher breaks her neck, Jessica Ann starts suspecting her cold and overprotective mother as the killer. Mommy. Horror, mystery, and thriller. Mosquito. A violent massacre caused by human-sized mosquitoes forced the lone survivors to band together in a fight for survival as the mosquitoes continue their onslaught. Horror, horror, and sci-fi. I love these overgrown monster movies. Mr. Stitch. Dr. Rue and his team create a young man with the skin and organs taken from other men and women. Sci-fi. Rutger Hauer. Mr. Stitch. Mutant Species. A rocket containing a biohazardous material crashes in a remote wooded area. An army team is sent to recover it, but one infected man mutates into a monster. Horror and sci-fi. The Nature of the Beast. Two men, both hiding a deadly secret, are on a murderous rampage through the desert. Crime, horror, mystery, and thriller. The Nature of the Beast. Night of the Scarecrow. A group of drunken teenagers accidentally set free the spirit of a warlock which possesses the Scarecrow. Revenge ensues. A terrifying evil is about to be unleashed. Night of the Scarecrow. Outbreak. A team of army doctors struggle to find a cure for the deadly Motapa virus that was transported from Africa to North America by a white-headed capuchin monkey. I love this movie. This movie was good. Piranha. Remake of the classic film of 1979, Tale of Nature Biting Back. When flesh-eating piranhas are accidentally released into a summer resort's rivers, the guests become their next meal. I love Piranha. Premonition following an Evil Dead. A short film about the events following a murder. Horror romance. Premonition following an Evil Dead. An Evil Deed. The Prophecy. At the scene of a bizarre murder, LA homicide detective Thomas Daggett discovers a lethal heavenly prophecy now being fulfilled on Earth. In his fight to stop the forces of evil, he finds an unlikely ally in an elementary school teacher. Proteus. Group of heroin smugglers seek refuge on an abandoned oil rig after their ship explodes. Horror, sci-fi, and thriller. Proteus. If I'm saying it right. Or Proteus. Raging Angels. Two musicians are unknowingly drawn into a supernatural scheme. Fantasy, horror, and thriller. Raging Angels. Featuring Diane Ladd. Rumpelstiltskin. The wish of a young widow to see her police officer husband killed on the line of duty frees a demonic creature who wants to claim the soul of her baby. Dark comedy, fantasy, and horror. Sacrifice of the White Goddess. In this shot-on-video homage to Mondo movies, an archaeology student joins forces with a roguish traitor to follow an ancient Mayan treasure map in search of gold. Horror. Savage Vows. After Mark loses his wife in a horrible car crash, 6 of his closest friends stay at his house for the weekend to help console him. Instead, They find themselves fighting for their lives. I love it. Savage Vows. Scanner Cop 2. A demonic scanner terrorizes Los Angeles, and the only person who can stop him may not have the neurons for the job. Horror and sci-fi. I love it. Serpent's Lair. Tom is seduced by it. Succubus Lilith, who's out to drain him and destroy his marriage. Supernatural horror, horror and thriller. Serpent's Lair. I love it. Sleep Stalker. A serial killer known as the Sandman is resurrected by a voodoo priest into a body made of sand. To keep his new body, he must track down and kill the one victim who escaped him 17 years before. Slasher horror. Species. A group of scientists try to track down and trap a killer alien seductress before she successfully mates with a human. Action horror, sci-fi, and thriller. I love Species. Storm Swept. On a stormy night in Louisiana, 6 people are haunted by the spirit of a demented slave master with an insatiable erotic appetite as they stay trapped inside a haunted mansion by a thunderstorm. Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. High-level demons collect low-level demons as warriors and attempt to obtain the key containing the blood of Christ. Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. Action, fantasy, horror, and thriller. Tales from the Hood. All-black cast. A funeral director tells 4 strange tales of horror with an African-American focus to 3 drug dealers he traps in his place of business. Crime, drama, horror, and thriller. Temptress. Karen Swan brings a statue home from her travels to Asia, and it soon begins to have a strange effect on her. She has an insatiable sexual appetite and develops strange fetishes, such as pain and death. Temptress. Terminal virus. It has been 23 years since the World War, during which combatants unleashed a lab-created virus that has destroyed the fun of life. Action, horror, and sci-fi. Terminal virus. Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. A group of teenagers get into a car crash in the Texas woods on prom night, and they wander into an old farmhouse that is home to Leatherface. Dark comedy, satire, and slasher horror. So they end up in the woods, going to the prom. The Black Cat. The story takes place in prison, where a prisoner tells the tale of how he killed his wife to an inquisitor. Crime, horror, mystery. The Black Cat. La Regina degli Uomini Pesce. 2 teenagers prowl a devastated landscape polluted by radioactive waste and search for food. Adventure, horror, and sci-fi. La Regina degli Uomini Pesce. I can't say the title, so. The Langoliers, one of the best films of 1995. Most of the passengers on an airplane disappear, and the remainder land the plane in a mysteriously barren airport. I love The Langoliers. The Omen. Epidemiologist Dr. Linus and Jack Mann try to stop a demonic entity that's possessing people from unleashing a biological weapon. Fantasy, mystery, horror, and thriller. The Sandman. Gary is a trailer park romance novelist who can't seem to sleep at night. He also thinks that he saw a monster assaulting his girlfriend while she was sleeping. Horror. The Sandman. The Surgeon. A small boy witnesses his brother being killed in surgery. Grows up to become a monster with a scalpel. So he's going to get revenge for them killing his brother. I love it. Slasher, horror, horror, and thriller. The Alien Within. Trapped under 2,500 foot of crushing pressure, an underwater research team is invaded by an unknown mind-controlling alien. Horror and sci-fi. The Alien Within. The Fear. A group of college seniors spending a weekend at a cottage for a psychological experiment called Fear Therapy find a human-sized wooden figure called Morty, which triggers everyone's deepest and darkest secrets and emotions. The Granny. Granny's family wants her dead so they can collect her insurance. While she is on her deathbed, she drinks an eternal life potion and returns to the land of the living. She is on a mission to wreak havoc over the greedy relatives. I love it. I love it. The Wasp Woman. In this remake of the 1959 classic, the owner of a cosmetic company works with a doctor that has been experimenting with a miracle cure for aging. The Wasp Woman. Only she turns into a wasp. The Mangler. A laundry folding machine has been possessed by a demon, causing it to develop homicidal tendencies. Horror and mystery. The Mangler. So a washing machine is killing people. Next up we have is a foreign film, Der Kopf des Mohren. A seemingly contented man's descent into hallucination, paranoia, and finally total insanity. Drama and horror. The Moor's Head. The Surgeon. A small boy witnesses his brother being killed in surgery, grows up to become a monster with a scalpel. I think I just covered this, so please forgive the duplicate. But The Surgeon, if you haven't checked it out, I think you'll like The Surgeon. Traces of Death 3. The third installment in the Traces of Death shockumentary series. Splatter horror, documentary, and horror. If you're squeamish, I would not watch it. If you like gore, you should watch it. Vampire Vixens from Venus. Parody, comedy, horror, and sci-fi. 3 Venusians land on Earth and transform themselves into beautiful buxom babes. They go about their task of sucking the life force out of the unsuspecting males. So these are vampires. Vampire in Brooklyn. A Caribbean vampire seduces a Brooklyn police officer who has no idea that she is half vampire. Dark fantasy, dark romance, horror, vampire horror. With Eddie Murphy. Village of the Damned. A small town's woman gives birth to unfriendly alien children posing as humans. Horror, sci-fi, and thriller. Village of the Damned. Visitors of the Night. Judith notices some very creepy things are happening around town. She and the town sheriff make a chilling discovery. The town's teens are disappearing. When they reappear, they are suffering from amnesia. Visitors of the Night. Voodoo, featuring Corey Feldman. A college student must save his girlfriend from a fraternity of voodoo cultists who hope to make her a human sacrifice. Horror and thriller. This movie's pretty good, so check it out. Voodoo. Witch Academy. Members of an exclusive college sorority where sadomasochism seems to rule the day, seek twisted new ways to humiliate a new pledge. Witch Academy. Witchboard 3, The Possession. Like a Medusa. A woman must battle for her loved one's soul when an ancient Ouija board opens a pathway to a demonic force. Horror. The ultimate evil is taking over. Witchcraft 7, Judgment Hour. Will Spanner is at it again, battling sex star beautiful demon vampires in the 7th installment of the series. Witchcraft 7. Horror. Extro 3. Watch the Skies. Marines travel to a deserted island to defuse bombs, only to be terrorized by a deadly alien creature. Extro 3. This was supposed to compete with E.T. Alien, how he was all friendly. Extra was not as friendly as E.T. Zombie Bloodbath 2. An evil demonic scarecrow resurrects the dead as ravenous cannibalistic zombies who feast on the living. Horror. Zombie Bloodbath. Those were the best horror films of 1995. Those were all the horror films that came out that year. What were some of your favorite horror films of that 1995? To me, I would have to say off the top of my head, was probably The Langoliers. I remember watching that. It was a TV miniseries, but it was good for a TV movie. And if you have the DVD, you can see it as a full movie as opposed to when it was on a TV miniseries. You had to come back the following day or the following Friday to finish up the story. But The Langoliers just stood out to me. It had Bronson Pinchot from Perfect Strangers. But that movie was really good. It was eerie. It made you think. It was creepy. Some good scares in it. But check out The Langoliers if you haven't. Alright, let me know in the comments below what were some of your favorite movies of 1995. Were there any movies you think I may have left out? That's probably not true, because I think I have every single movie that came, that came out in 1995. Alright, I'm Tony. Thanks for watching. And those were the best horror films of 1995. Stick around for the next best horror films of 1996. Alright, thanks everyone. I'll see you folks real soon.